everybody. We are doing episode 490, the Day One Patch podcast. I'm your temporary host. I almost said Ryan Johnson. I'm your temporary host, Ryan Johnson.
Just too used to hearing it.
It's kind of crazy, yeah. So I'm your temporary host, Matt Lawrence. Ryan Johnson has lost internet once again. It is too humid for his internet to run. That's an in-joke that no one else will get, but that's okay.
I get it. And
you're laughing your ass off. Your cat's behind you, laughing his ass off. I misnamed him, and I still don't know his name. Kilo and Kitten.
Nope.
Tango.
There you go.
Damn it. So the problem is like, I remember when you first got them, you told me like, this one's is Tango, and then I was like, is the other one Cash? And you said no, and for some reason I keep thinking that Tango is the wrong name and Cash is the right. I don't know. It's messed up in my brain for some reason. Doesn't work. Doesn't compute.
It's all your fault.
Papa John's.
Oh.
Anyway.
doesn't compute Papa John's?
Yeah.
I can't imagine their pizzas are good at computing, yeah.
Although, I guess they probably have an app in which you could order.
Hashtag not sponsored.
Yeah, sponsored, not sponsored. But I have a weird question to ask you, Tim. A weird gaming question.
Here it comes.
So I've recently been using the Steam Deck a fair bit, and I have been using it, here and there all along. But I've been messing around, getting some more games working on there, and installing a bunch of games, actually. And I think, and I don't know if you agree with this, I don't think that the sticks are good.
On the Steam Deck?
Yes. I think they're too tall.
They took some getting used to for me.
Because I had an incident in RoboCop where there's a mechanic in which you breach in through a door, everything goes slow-mo, and you can shoot people in the slow-mo, but the slow-mo only lasts so long, and then it goes real time. And I was doing a hostage situation, and I've never lost a hostage, and I lost every single hostage because I couldn't kill the people quick enough. I couldn't shoot the people quick enough. And I blame that on the Steam Deck because I restored from checkpoint, went onto the computer, and then I just did it in like 2 seconds. It didn't take me any time at all.
Are you using a controller on the computer?
No, my mouse and keyboard.
So that's what it was then. It wasn't a matter of like inherently the Steam Deck. It was just controller layout versus mouse and keyboard layout.
So I thought that as well. I haven't tested this with this particular game, but in the past, I always thought maybe what it is PC games are more tailored for a mouse. Obviously, I'm literally more precise with a mouse. It's a more precision tool, arguably, but I'm more precise with a mouse. And so like maybe that's, the reason. But I do find that I can't aim in shooters in general on the Steam Deck as well as I would on like an Xbox or even a PlayStation. And I will say that I'm worse on PlayStation than I am on Xbox with aiming.
I used to be better with a controller than mouse and keyboard, but then I started playing a lot of more PC games like as I got older, and I think that sort of like changed very quickly for me.
There's like a point on PC with a mouse where, at least for me, it was like I just got it. Like I remember booting up a shooter and just bang 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 hit every target, and it's just like you just get in that flow for whatever reason on PC, I find, and it's easier to get in that flow just because it's arguably a more precise tool. Now I will say is that I think it was Apex or something. I can't remember, but I was told this. I never confirmed this myself, that some of the top players in the world, at least sometime last year or maybe a few months ago now, were actually controller players. And so some people are definitely getting, pretty good with controller. And I do know that back in the day, I haven't seen this guy in years, but Nick Merckx, maybe he still plays Fortnite, I have no idea. But back in the day when he played Fortnite, he was a controller guy. And then he eventually went to PC and then started using a controller. And then I have no idea what his status is now. But so I don't know. Like, I just feel as though it's the same thing with the Vita. So I was trying to say it's the same thing with the Vita. It's been a while since I used it. But the Vita, like Ryan and I have had this conversation a few times where the Vita sticks are small. Obviously, it's a little portable console and much smaller than the Steam Deck. And because of that, obviously the sticks are smaller and you just can't quite get that precision. And my argument was that I actually thought that the sticks weren't as good. Like, I think that the sticks are actually fine, meaning the hardware themselves on the Vita. But I thought that the sticks weren't as tuned. Like, there's something with the tuning on a console that is like far beyond what they've done on a handheld. I have no evidence to support that. It's just my own feeling. like, have you used like a I don't know, a Vita or any like other handheld with two sticks, two analog sticks?
Just the Vita, yeah. And then I guess technically like the 3DS when you get the dual stick like add-on that you can plug the 3DS into, so you can have two sticks, but only a couple of games support it because they obviously were not designed for, or like the games weren't necessarily designed for two sticks.
So like the little, oh no, not in the little nub. You mean literally like that big dock thing?
Yeah, there's the little nub as well on the new 3DS. But yeah, there's like a plastic thing that I think shipped like from Japan when I bought it. That yeah, it's like a plastic shell basically that you put the 3DS in, and then it has a right stick on the right side. I did use the little nub from time to time, but I still got the extra control stick thing for my 3DS, my new 3DS XL, because it worked better. And actually, I got a new 2DS XL, wrong emphasis, new 2DS XL over the 3DS, and it had that nub, but there was a pretty popular like mod, like aftermarket mod for using specifically a PSP like stick disc. Like they didn't have sticks, they had the little discs that you would like push left and right, and one of the popular mods was to take that rubber nub off the 2DS XL and put the 2DS or rather the PSP stick thing over the connection point. And I was like, you know what, I'm gonna try to do this, and I bought like a used 2DS XL and was like, if I screw it up, I screw it up. It's fine. I'm not gonna like be sad if I lose this right stick or whatever. And I literally just took some tweezers and I pulled the rubber off, and then there's just the little kind of plastic nub that it's operating on. And I just took I bought some replacement PSP circle pads off of the internet, and then you just basically take it and just like pushed it on, and it clicked onto it as if it had like meant to be there. And it's super low profile, so you can still close the DS, and there's no like issue scratching the screen or anything.
Oh my god!
It was like it was meant to be. It just worked really, really well. And I played a lot of Monster Hunter on that thing, and the camera controls were like perfect. It worked so nicely. It was really, really good.
And you actually move the disc, or you still just, because that little nub is like pressure?
Yeah, it doesn't move very much. You basically just apply pressure to different sides. The disc is the same thing, but you have such a larger surface area to like apply pressure and more accurately, like where you want it to go. And it was perfect. It worked really, really well.
That's pretty good. Okay. I mean, I didn't know about that. I feel like I maybe saw a picture of one once and was like, what the heck? Because I kind of remember seeing something like that, but I didn't know it was like, I don't know, widespread and all that. That's pretty cool. But yeah, no, I would love to like see other people's, I mean, I could look it up, I guess, other people's opinion on like the Steam Deck. Because the Steam Deck, I feel like it's kind of like big and unwieldy a little bit. And then you're like also trying to like hold these sticks. And one of my biggest problems is like clicking the left stick in consistently to run. I always seem to like apply pressure in the wrong angle and it feels weird. And I constantly think to myself, like, maybe these sticks should be a little shorter, but then I think you're going to get less accuracy, maybe. Like, I don't know. It's just, I think maybe I just need to use the Steam Deck more, and maybe more consistently in like one game to like get used to the controls rather than jumping here, there, and everywhere, and every game's like slightly different.
I was going to say, do you use a lot of different controllers frequently? Because like if you're going back and forth between like Xbox and PlayStation 5 and the different one for PC and Steam Deck and all this stuff, like it might be that you're literally like not, your hands don't have enough time to like get used to using that style or whatever.
So on that front, it's just what do you call it? PS5 and then Xbox, because on the PC I'll use an Xbox controller as well. So it's just the two. But I mean, that's nothing to, you know, it could be that a third is just too much, because I will say with 100% certainty based on my performances, I'm not very good at like competitive shooters on the DualSense, but I am good. Like, and I'm not good in the overall, to be clear, I'm not like amazing at these shooters, but I am significantly better when I'm using an Xbox controller, which, I mean, most of my COD playing is on there and on those like from 360 on kind of thing. So that does hold true. Like, that makes sense.
Man, I mean, we were playing Halo again on like Wednesday night, and it's been so long since I played a competitive game with a controller. And like that used to be all I did, right? I played like Halo Reach and Gears 3 was like probably the peak of my like competitive online shooter playing. And I was I was pretty good with a controller then, but it's really funny to have played it again and we're playing like Halo 1 multiplayer online and just seeing like how rusty I am. Like thinking like I should be able to like, using a controller be able to more finely tune my aim than I can. Like I think I should be able to do it and then I try to do it and I just cannot. Like that ability is totally gone.
It's something that you can very easily. It's a skill you can very easily lose, and it's a skill you kind of don't realize you have almost, which is kind of weird. I remember when I played COD Modern Warfare 2 a whole bunch, the most recent Modern Warfare 2. I thought like I'm not getting better, and then I saw how I started moving and acting in clips I'd make, funny little clips that can't happen. I'd hit the 30-second clip, and watching me just move around, from the beginning of me being like I'm gonna get a positive kill death ratio in this game to the end of it, and that includes other shooters too, like Apex and stuff. It's like night and day. Like my movement was totally different and all this, but it's not like a skill where it's there's like a really obvious physical result where it's like I now know how to build shelves. Whereas like Call of Duty, it's like, am I getting better because skill-based matchmaking is bringing me up, so like I'm not doing that much better, like what, like, you know what I mean? There's not like a super tangible proof.
Yeah, to your perception you feel like you're better than you were.
Yep. And I'm definitely moving different, but like because it's like so minute, it's like I could see that being super easy to lose. Like if you stop practicing it, like it'd be gone in a flash.
You got to stay on it.
But I think we'll move on to the video game fun facts. I have a juicy one for you here today, Tim. This one is another retro one. It is regarding the Atari 2600, actually. We're going to be talking today about the world's first wireless controller. So the world's first wireless controller was created for the Atari 2600 by a third party named Synex Manufacturing Corp. The controller was made in 1982, and it was called the GameMate 2. It looked and operated the same way that a traditional Atari 2600 controller looked and felt. Like it looked just, the sort of like a black box, red button, joystick, that's about it. It looks just like that. The base is thicker to accommodate the wireless hardware inside of it. And that's basically it for the controller. Like it looks exactly like a traditional controller. Now, the GameMate 2, because it was, in 1980 and 1982, it didn't just have that. It had to have a receiver box, and that took the form of a very small, or rather small, black box that connected to the Atari 2600 via cabling. And it had an antenna coming out of it that was actually telescopic. So it was kind of like chrome or metallic in color. And it's the same type of antenna you would see on sort of old school home radios. That type of antenna. And a paper ad that I found for the GameMate 2 reads that it is, quote, the world's first wireless remote control joysticks, end quote. And then it says it also lists that it's for the Atari, Sears, and Commodore VIC-20. So just like how the Atari controllers or some Atari controllers were multi-platform, which I'll get into in a little bit, this thing could also work on across some of these different platforms. Now, setting up the GameMate 2 is actually pretty simple and like exactly kind of how you'd think it would work. So it has a receiver box. Now, it doesn't have its own independent power. It had a power pass-through. So basically, the receiver box, you would take the Atari's power cable that it came with, plug it into the receiver box, and then there was a cable from the receiver box that would then supply power to the Atari when you plugged it into the Atari's power port. And then this thing could actually handle two controllers, so two cables would come out of this thing, and you could attach it to each of the controller ports. And then, of course, you would, sort of adjust the antenna so that it would work well. And then you had these other controllers, the sort of the thicker traditional controllers, like I already mentioned. You would use those like a regular controller, but just wirelessly. Now, if like people still sell these things, like I still see them. I've seen them online. I've seen them on eBay and things like that. Not the GameMate 2, a variant of it, which we will get into in a bit here, but because there's so much, I mean, interference now. There's like modern Wi-Fi signals could actually cause problems with these things these days.
Oh.
And even back in the day, it wasn't the greatest because it's like, oh, like the microwave was on. Oh, like someone had like an 80s cell phone. Like another electronic was on. Like it's a pain in the ass, right? Because these are literally radio signals. Now, the Atari 2600, which was originally released as the Atari the video computer system and was rebranded as the Atari 2600, originally shipped with a controller with the model number CX10. And about a year later, these were updated to the CX40, and that's the iconic controller that most of us are familiar with today. Now, this is now to talk about the cross compatibility, because the CX40 was cross compatible with a whole bunch of different consoles and devices, such as the VIC-20, Commodore 64, Commodore 128, MSX, Atari ST, and Amiga. And then it was also compatible with third-party adapters, on things like the Apple II, the Commodore 16, the TI-99/4A, and the ZX Spectrum. Now, Cynex, was buddy at this point with Atari, and so they actually developed an official set of wireless Atari controllers. So they developed the official CX42. So it was the Atari 2600 remote control joysticks is what they called them. Again, model number CX42. And on the box, they were sold as the Atari remote control wireless joysticks. Now, these controllers were wireless, just like the GameMate 2. They also had a receiver box, but it did look aesthetically different, had different branding, and just looked a little bit different. And it sported the Atari branding instead. And this set was released in the summer of 1983. From a technical perspective, however, it was basically just a rebrand of the previous year's GameMate 2. And that's the fun fact. The world's first set, I suppose, of wireless controllers all the way back in 1982 with the Atari 2600.
82. That's crazy. Because, like, I'm trying to think of the first wireless controller I ever saw. It was definitely I think they called it the Dolphin for the GameCube.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
And Dolphin was the code name for GameCube when it was coming out, which is why the Dolphin emulator is called what it is. It's for GameCube emulation. Yeah, I remember going to a friend's place, and it just it kind of blew my mind, the concept that you could have a wireless controller. Little did I know that literally 20 years earlier it had already happened.
Yeah, actually, so I just pulled up my records here in my research. So I asked, just as I do when I start my research, I asked Copilot what was the first wireless video game controller, and it actually came up with the first wireless video game controller was the Wavebird for the Nintendo GameCube.
Or Wavebird, that's what it's called. Yeah.
And I know exactly what you're talking about, though. Like, it was like it was big. Like, it was like a GameCube controller, but a real big middle part.
Chunky on the back, yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Because I think it had, you had to, I think it came with a dongle that you had to plug into the GameCube, and then you also had to determine which port it was in, I think, on the actual controller. Like, it would have a different light to indicate which port you were trying to connect to. Because you could theoretically have 4 of these plugged in at the same time, and you had to, I think it had some sort of redundancy where it's it has to plug into the port on the GameCube, but then you also have to, make sure the controller is trying to connect to that port. Because if you had multiple of those plugged in at the same time, the controller wouldn't necessarily know on its own which one it's trying to connect to. That might be wrong. I haven't seen one of these things in literally 15 years, but 20 years earlier than that is kind of insane to me.
Well, I mean, I got the impression, I didn't see any specific comments, but I got the impression from people that it didn't really work too well. Whereas the Wavebird,
yeah,
I remember was looked fondly upon by people. I remember there was a guy in college that was setting up his car to have GameCube in the back. So he got these little LCD screens that were actually attachable to the backs of car seat
headrests,
headrests, yeah, and he had a shockproof base for the GameCube, and he had controllers, but he didn't want cables everywhere, and so he was on the hunt for Wavebirds, but they were just copiously expensive to have 3 or 4 of them. Not to mention it's a car, it's going to get hot, cold all the time with different temperatures, and he was worried about the batteries inside, which is a valid concern. But that's what he was after, because I mean he even said he said he had them as a kid, he had a couple, and they worked really well. Which is I want to say like it was like when I looked it up on Copilot, it mentioned, you know, that like those were the first, like the Wavebird was the first, but then it said, but there is the GameMate 2, which claimed it was, and then I ended up, you know, kind of digging into that. I'm kind of curious whether the Wavebird is the first party one, because we didn't really see Xbox controllers and PlayStation controllers that were wireless until the PS3 and the Xbox 360.
I forgot that you said it was a third party add-on, which is actually kind of even more crazy. Like that just seems more experimental to me. They weren't even like, it wasn't that the actual like Atari was like, we got to invest in this like experimental thing. It was a different company entirely going, we could probably do this. Which company should we try to do it for?
It was, what's kind of crazy about it too is like gaming was a niche. Like I know the Atari was popular, but it's like gaming was still a niche. Not everyone, you know, certainly not everyone did it. Certainly not everybody knew what it was. Nowadays, even if you don't play games, for the most part, you see, like, you're aware of video games. You're aware that they exist. You know, generally that they're around. And I mean, this thing must have been popular enough because, like I said, like, you know, Cynex was contacted and then eventually started making it official, right? Like making the actual manufacturing the official Atari branded, you know, GameMate 2s in the form of the CX42, which is ridiculous. Like what an era. Like one thing I just remembered is, and I don't know if you remember this, Tim, is so remote controls, like for your TV, I mean, are generally still to this day infrared.
Right.
And consoles, specifically the PS2 and the Xbox the original Xbox, those, you know, tried to be entertainment consoles. You know, so for example, like they were both DVD players. But when you go to watch a movie, usually you control it with a remote control, similar to the TV, but you would, you know, control a VCR or a DVD player. And in order to get the similar thing working, you had to plug in an infrared adapter. I don't know if you remember that. I have a PS2, like, you know, media remote, but there is a dongle that's for infrared. So I plug it in as a controller, and like that's its infrared. And the same goes with the Xbox original too. You plug in, like, you actually have to plug in the infrared like receiver.
Huh.
Which is ridiculous. Like it's so like wireless stuff back then was wild. It's the Wild West.
Yeah, it just wasn't very developed yet, right? Which is like that was good times. It was like everyone, like, no one was really sure how to do anything yet. So it was all just trying crazy stuff all the time.
Well, I have this like memory as well where I was with a friend and his dad in like Toys R Us, and their setup was they had one of those rooms where you walk in the room and you're behind the TV and you're behind all the electronics, and so all the cables go into this big room. Right. And then, you know, you have your sound receivers, CD player, all that stuff, right? VCR, DVD player, all that stuff, and you plug it all in behind. And so it's like all kind of, you know, out of sight and out of mind. And then when you sit in the room, you just sort of like see the TV and all this like kind of poking out from these like holes that go right through to this closet. And I remember one of the big problems was they had a PS2, you know, unless there were third party ones of which I'm not aware of right now, they had wired controllers.
Yep.
And so they had this problem where everything would be all neat, but then their PS2 was either up on the shelf, its cables, like the actual PS2's cables were neat, but then the controllers wouldn't reach down, or they would have to move the PS2 to the coffee table. Now you have this big old cable being drooped across, and you're ruining like this whole idea of, again, this cable management room. But when we went to this Toys R Us electronics section, they had like a meter, or like I think it was might have been a 2 meter extension. So it was like you plug in this cable and it comes out and there's like this round thing where you can like kind of wrangle the cable around. But on this round thing, there's actually a plug for you to plug in your controller. So I remember they started using that. They like would run that out, and then it would be like, sure, like two controller cables droop down. But now like the console doesn't have to be moved all the time. It doesn't have to get like bumped around. You don't have to keep messing around with the power cable. It's just simple, like roll these up and then unroll them when you're done. And it's just like, that wasn't that long ago. You know, nowadays, like, we just like this morning I was controlling an audiobook and my TV from a card on my phone in my notification shade. Like what a crazy like advancement.
Yeah, I mean, cable management's still a thing that's like kind of an awful mess because I was at my mom's last weekend, and like she has a bunch of new stuff in her basement, and there's like a TV down there over a fireplace and everything because she just did some reno and stuff. And I was thinking like it looks good because she's got like, you know, the TV box or the cable box or whatever, and it's all on like a shelf behind the wall mounted TV and things. But I was just thinking like if anything here has to change, or like you need to plug anything in or access anything, like it's almost like a whole process because you got to move the TV, you got to extend it out from the wall so you can access the shelf that's behind the TV, and then you got to go, you know, get everything into its spot or access whatever you need to access, and then you have to like probably undo it all once you're done with it.
I can attest to that because I'm the one that set it up.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
It's like cable management, like classically is like cable management specifically with like ties and things is classically like, man, now it's all like out of mind or whatever. But it's like, but this USB port isn't working. It's like, oh fuck, was it the cable? Like, oh god, like
yeah.
you know, it's like, well, all right, like where's the ties? Like undo the ties, fish the cable through. It's such a pain in the ass.
Yeah, I was gonna say even I have like very like lightly done some cable ties for all of my cables here for my computer, and I was just thinking like I'm not going to go into it any more than this because if one of these cables needs to be replaced or I need to add something to this or anything like that, I have to undo all these cable ties, which is like not a big deal because it's only, you know, 3 of them or whatever. But then I was thinking like I see videos online all the time of people doing like, oh, it's cable management porn or like computer setup porn where it's everything is all like very neatly packed away and put away and stuff. And they've got the like almost like old phone cable, like wrapping around all their cables to like keep it all neat. And or they put it inside some sort of like plastic or metal like sleeve and it closes up, or it like magnets to the back of a desk, or it's wall mounted or all this stuff. And I look at that and I think if you have to replace a cable or remove or add anything, that's a significant time investment to do that. That's a huge project that you've just made like work for yourself if you ever have to do that, which is like the vast majority of time. Yeah, probably not. But if it does, it's going to be a huge pain in the ass.
It's not going to be easy. No, it certainly isn't. And I remember like when I was building this computer or talking about it, I think one of the things I really wanted was I wanted to have like a dock on the desk, and I wanted it to be like the computer itself, the tower is plugged into the wall for power, and then it is plugged into this dock, and then everything goes to the dock, and that's it. And so if I need to move the computer or like, you know, whatever, maintain it or what have you, I'm able to just unplug, you know, 2 things, maybe a third with you know, networking or something like that, and then that's it. Not, you know, oh, I got this, you know, my keyboard, my mouse, my gamepad, I got freaking like, you know, it's chaos. Like I have you have a USB hub that's attached to the monitor that's plugged into here, and like it just starts getting to be like, well, okay, I guess I really did need these 12 USB ports because I got about 18 things to plug in, and they daisy chain, some of them do, and like this keyboard takes 2 USB, like it plugs into 2 USB ports. It's chaos. Like it's it's ridiculous. The wireless, like, it's weird though. The wireless future is something I'd like, but I don't want to replace batteries, so I would just complain the whole time. I want my cake and I want to eat it too. Basically.
Nothing wrong with that. Cake's good.
Cake is pretty good sometimes.
Cake's a pretty B tier dessert, honestly.
I prefer pie, honestly.
Pie is S tier. Cake, maybe it's a hot take, but cake is pretty mid. Like it has to be a really good cake. There's a big difference between a really good cake and like a average standard cake, but there's not that significant a difference between an average pie and a really good pie, because pie is just inherently really good on average. Yep,
I agree with that. It's honestly sometimes it's just the crust that makes it.
Oh, absolutely. Anyway, video games.
Video game news. How do you like your apple pie? No,
a little on the cold side.
I'm actually the same. Like, I like mine very cold, if I'm being honest.
Frozen, even. Just chew on it for a couple hours. Let it thaw in your mouth.
No, you just hear me crunching like it's Thanksgiving.
Don't worry, like, that's just my teeth.
This apple crumbles great. And I'm just sitting there just crunching away. That's gross. But what isn't gross, there's a segue for you, nice. Is another conference happened this week in the form of Nintendo Direct, June 2024. Now, Tim, you're the only one that watched this. I was going to say famously. I famously don't watch Nintendo Directs. So you said there was 3 main announcements, but you can, go and, talk about any of them that you wish. But you mentioned,
we can skim through some of them pretty quick, but
you mentioned Metroid Prime 4, Mario Luigi Brothership, and Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom, which are the big ones. So why don't you dive in wherever you'd like.
Yeah. So we actually saw gameplay of Metroid Prime 4 Beyond is what it's being called. It's like the first time that they've shown anything for it in a long time. Only time they've ever shown gameplay, I'm pretty sure. This is a famously delayed title. It was in dev for the Wii U, I think, originally. And then it was delayed, and then it was scrapped, and then they started over again. And now it seems like it's coming out for the Switch, or possibly even the Switch successor, because they did show a date as just 2025. So they're banking on next year. I think that the art style looks very cool. It's very similar to me to like the Metroid Prime remaster that they put on Switch. The gameplay looks very similar as well. Metroid is a series that I really wish that I had played more of, but I will say that one of my favorite GameCube games is Metroid Prime. It's really, really good. And I really enjoyed playing the remaster again when that came out like 2 years ago. Something like that. Yeah, go check out the trailer. It's cool. It's something that people have been asking for forever. Like every Nintendo Direct, it's always, where's Metroid? Where's Metroid? Where's Metroid? So there it is. Fingers crossed. Hopefully it doesn't get delayed again, but they have actually made progress and it looks pretty cool. They didn't show off too much though. It was like 30 seconds of gameplay. Pretty basic stuff. The whole Direct kicked off with another Mario and Luigi game, which is really sick. I'm a huge fan of that series. It's one of my favorite series, one of my favorite handheld Nintendo series. Started with Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga, and then there was Partners in Time on the DS and Bowser's Inside Story on the DS as well, and then they went to the 3DS. And what was the weird one with like Paper Mario on the Wii U or something like that, or maybe the 3DS? But anyway, I don't know. It was one of those series again where it kind of like fell off after the first couple of games. But this genuinely looks really fucking good. Mario and Luigi Brothership, where it's the whole premise is they're kind of on this very natural looking ship in the sea that's made of like an island and trees and stuff like that. And they're kind of going around to different environments and playing very typical sort of gameplay elements to what you would remember from the original games. Like to me, it looks very OG Superstar Saga, Partners in Time kind of era. I really, really love the art style for the series. And they've kind of, like, if you remember sort of like that early or to mid 2000s era of like Mario games where the manuals would have very like stylized art in the little handbooks that would come with the games, Mario and Luigi was always very like faithful to that art style. And this one now with like the Switch and stuff, it's basically that art style, but 3D and probably 60 frames a second on the Switch. And it looks they're just like kind of bringing that old handheld, or rather packaging manual art inside to life, which is really, really cool. So again, it looks like the combat is kind of that 2-dimensional left side of the screen versus right side of the screen. You've got your action commands, you've got your bros moves that Mario charges up his hammer, and then Luigi pulls out his hammer and smacks the back of Mario's hammer, makes Mario do a bunch of front flips and slams his hammer down on the enemy that you'll have to time all of this stuff for to do maximum damage to the enemy and stuff. And then it also showed some sort of combat segments where it was like front of the screen towards the background. So that's kind of interesting. There were certain like bros moves in some of the like 2DS or the DS and 3DS games that were kind of like that. So it kind of looks like, to me, sort of a culmination of all like kind of the successful stuff from the games through the series, but kind of throwing it back to an original style. They didn't really show off too much story-wise. It was a lot of like cutscene stuff, and then gameplay things, mostly combat and sort of traversal puzzles in the world, back and forth. But very excited because it's a series that I've wanted a solid entry in for a while, and I just wasn't a huge fan of sort of many of the recent games. I didn't even end up buying all of them. So very, very cool. They showed off another...
I just watched actually the thing, and like you're saying that it has like that, like the combat's left to right, side scroller, but then it also has like the front and back. It's almost like they're trying to like keep faithful to the quote unquote the 2D side scroller while acknowledging that it's still it's a 3D game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It could also just be that that's like a particular special move that reorients the camera just for the sake of like a fresh idea.
Right.
Which, I mean, the Mario games specifically, any Mario game is really well known for like constantly throwing new ideas at you and stuff. So it's that sort of thing is cool to see. I'm keen to see what the story is like for that game. They also showed off a new Super Mario Party on the Switch. It's called Jamboree. If I had to guess, it's probably like a sequel to Super Mario Party, which came out a number of years ago on the Switch. I think a lot of people weren't like huge fans of it because there was that one, and then there was also Mario Party Superstars, I think is the other one. And I think Superstars was more so just like focused on like mini games and mini game modes. Or Super Mario Party was kind of trying to use some new ideas and stuff. However, this one, Super Mario Party Jamboree, seems to, again, they're throwing in a bunch of classic maps from Mario Party 1 and 2 and remaking them for the Switch. And I think it comes with like 5 other boards to start. I'm sure as they update or they release more content, maybe as part of like the Nintendo Switch Online expansion pass, you might get some new boards for Mario Party. It's Mario Party, They're not doing anything too crazy with it. You're going to have new boards. You're going to have new mini games. They're going to bring back the good ones that people like. It's a party game. It's Mario Party. In what I consider to be the biggest surprise of the Direct, even more than Metroid for me, was a new Zelda game. In the same art style as Link's Awakening remake on the Switch, the sort of little plasticine sort of model characters. A new game called The Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom, which is actually coming very soon. It's end of September this year, which is not too far away. And in the direct showing, they sort of show off a typical Link who kind of looks like a little bit inspired by Breath of the Wild a bit because he's got sort of like the hood and cape on in some sort of dungeon. He takes out a bunch of knights, goes into a final room, and is fighting classic like monster Ganon, who's got his trident that he's throwing around the room. Link's jumping over and dodging it. He's doing spin attacks and stuff, and he dispatches Ganon. And then Zelda's also in there in like a crystal that he's imprisoned her in. And as Ganon is like dying or disappearing, he drops his trident, which opens up this like rift in the ground, which sucks Link into it. And as he's like sinking into the ground, he fires off an arrow and breaks the crystal that Zelda is in. But then he's whisked away to some dark world or something kind of thing. And then Zelda is sort of running out of this place with the rift opening up and swallowing this dungeon behind her. And then you realize, oh, the camera's like following Zelda. Like it looks like she's the playable character. And then she sort of goes over this big sweeping shot of the world of Hyrule, which seems to be very similar to the world in A Link to the Past and A Link Between Worlds. And it's doing that like Breath of the Wild intro where they run up to the cliff and then it sort of does like a sweeping wide shot and then the title appears on screen, Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom. And so basically what the game is you play as Zelda. She has a wand and a companion, a little fairy something thing, I think it's called Tri. And Tri gives her the Tri Rod, which basically lets her copy anything in the environment and then use it to her advantage. So for example, she can copy a table and then you can place tables in the world and jump on them to like cross gaps or get up cliffs and stuff. And then you can copy shrubs, you can copy trees, you can copy beds, you can copy signs, you can copy fences. Like the majority of the assets, it seems, in this game, you can basically put into your catalog of summonable things or echoes, and then you can resummon them in the world to solve puzzles and things. And then you can also defeat enemies, and then those enemies will drop an echo of themselves, and then you can summon enemies to help you in combat. So it's really cool. It's kind of like treating the entire world of Zelda as like a puzzle to be solved, and also these just little micro adventures that you can constantly be or these encounters that you can constantly be trying to solve. The one thing that was really stand out to me was that normally in these 2D top-down Zelda games, you are limited by the environment because they'll put like a line of trees or a cliff or stuff like this, and then it's just like, oh, I can't get past that. Like that's how it's demarcating. This is the current play zone. It's like this forest area because it's surrounded by a line of trees. But then there's a clip where she stacks up a bunch of boxes and a crate and a trampoline and then kind of jumps on top of the tree line and then is running around on the tree line and goes over to like the other zone. So that's really cool because it indicates that they're basically taking what is like an established concept of a 2D Zelda. It's like, this is the screen you have to be on right now. And they're basically throwing it out the window and saying you can just kind of go anywhere sandbox style as long as you've got the means of like climbing over a wall or a tree kind of thing. Then there's also a little bit of like Minecrafty elements too, where you can get like cubes of water and basically like place them and stack them up, and then you can go into the water and swim up to the surface. And if you've got 4 of them stacked high and you've got a cliff that's 4 high, now you can jump from that water tower that you've made to the cliff and get up it. So I think they're trying to highlight it's very a sandboxy 2D Zelda game, where you can kind of make your own adventure. You're going to find your own stuff in a different way than other people are going to find it. You might go and say, I want to go straight to Death Mountain right away. And then you go off to the northwestern part of the map right off the bat. And from what they've shown, it seems like that's totally possible. You can do the game in kind of any order you want. So a huge surprise. I mean, I'm biased because I'm a Zelda fan, but that's really, really cool. And if we're including the CDI games, this is only the second ever game where you get to play as Zelda in a first-party Legend of Zelda game. And nobody really wants to include the CDI game. So the first time ever that you get to play as Zelda, which is really, really cool. And the key art that they've shown for this game release has Link and Ganon sort of looming in the background in sort of this shadowy fog filter kind of thing. And so a lot of people are either speculating, are we going to save Link in this game? Or because he's kind of shrouded in the same fog that Ganon is, maybe we get to fight Link, which would be kind of cool. Because the only time we've ever had something like that is like Dark Link in Ocarina of Time, famously in the Water Temple. But that sort of thing could be really cool to see Link as a fightable enemy, especially if he's got the tools and abilities that he normally has in a game.
I noticed like in the key art as well, like you're saying, it's in like kind of like that shadowy back it's sort of the back of the scene. But if you look at it, like Ganon, not like directly, but Ganon is more or less facing toward us, like the viewer of the picture. And so is Link. And Link is like kind of pissed off. He has a big frown on his face. He has his weapon drawn and shield up. And he's not raising that sword to Ganon. Yeah,
he's looking one way, Ganon's looking the other.
Yeah.
So it's not that he's like, it's not some Zelda sealing Ganon in the sacred realm and like holding him back for long enough for like Link to come help save the day kind of thing. They're both looking off in sort of different directions, but towards the perspective. Yeah. So that's a good point as well. It'd be very different if he was back turned to the camera and facing Ganon.
Yeah, like sword drawn on Ganon makes sense, but like sword drawn toward Hyrule, I guess, effectively, like that's it's like, what the hell's that?
Yeah. So it's very interesting. There's lots of questions, and I'm so excited for this game. So it's really cool that it's only coming out in like 3 months, basically. So hopefully maybe they'll do another like little gameplay thing of that before it comes out, which maybe we'll talk about it then. But yeah, super cool. Really, really excited. The Zelda team's been cooking.
Some stuff just doesn't leak, eh?
Yeah.
It's
and
so
you know
weird.
what? I love that. I love when it's like, this is obviously like a smaller project than something like Tears of the Kingdom, Breath of the Wild, but it's still like, it's the team. It's Eiji Aonuma is like the director, producer on it.
Yeah.
And it looks super solid. I really like these smaller games that are like super polished and super tight from these like big companies. It's so it's just fun. It's just cool, man.
Was the remake of like Link's Awakening good?
It was good. I think personally I prefer the Game Boy version more.
Okay.
I wasn't sold on the art style at the time. And the more that I see it and the more that I look at this game, I'm like, I'm being sold on it more. But I played through it once and I was like, that was cool. And then I traded it back in. But I think like with this world and with this, mechanic with Zelda and stuff, like it feels like it's going to be, it looks like it's going to feel like a different game. Link's Awakening is just like basically my favorite handheld game of all time. So it's very hard to replace that. But the remake on Switch was very faithful. It was fun. I flew through it, but it was one of those ones where I was like, I'm good to play it once, and then if I'm going to play it again, I'll probably play the Game Boy version. But
it's the only Zelda game I ever beat, not the remake, but Link's Awakening.
Damn.
Yeah.
It's a good one. It's a wonky one. It's that time, it's that era of Nintendo games where they were putting like Mario stuff in Zelda, and they were putting Zelda stuff in Mario, and everything was just sort of like wishy-washy Nintendo universe type stuff. Before things became more like solidified, like this is always going to be a Zelda thing, and this is always going to be a Mario thing, and that's why I like it. It's weird. I like the weird Zeldas like Majora's Mask and Link's Awakening and stuff. We can just kind of rapid fire through the rest of this though. So, Donkey Kong Country Returns on the Wii is getting a remake. It's getting a remaster and HDify for the Switch. Donkey Kong Country Returns HD. A fan favorite. I think people were hyped about this, and I'm always keen for more Donkey Kong. It's a very like solid series. I don't think there's ever been a bad Donkey Kong game, honestly. Just some of the best platformers out there, and the Wii one, no exception. So there you go. January 16th, 2025, Donkey Kong Country Returns HD on the Switch. Nintendo Switch Sports is getting a free update in the summer. They're adding basketball. So if you still have Nintendo Switch Sports collecting dust on your game shelf, dust it back off and pop it in the Switch, play a little basketball. Sounds good. Maybe get back into some volleyball and soccer and stuff.
Was that trying to capitalize on Wii Sports? Because I forgot that there were Switch Sports.
I was actually really excited for Switch Sports because I missed out on Wii Sports. I never had a Wii when they were like current and popular. So I didn't get to enjoy that time aside from going to a friend's place and playing with them. But Switch Sports is pretty good. It's like Kayla and I had a lot of fun playing it like locally, playing the soccer and stuff online.
Do you actually move? Because there is some motion with the Joy-Cons, right?
Yeah. Yep. For soccer, you can like if you have the leg strap from that came with Ring Fit Adventure.
Leg strap?
Yeah. You can actually like kick, you can strap it to your leg because it has like a little slot for a Joy-Con that you can put in on your like thigh, and then if you kick, you can kick the ball in soccer and stuff. And it's pretty good. I liked the badminton and tennis the best, but there's like what else is there? There's soccer is really good, and the bowling is pretty good too.
Okay.
But
Wii bowling is a staple.
Yeah, exactly. Stuff that is available right now. They've added a couple new things to the Nintendo Switch Online for N64. They added Perfect Dark and Turok Dinosaur Hunter. So a couple of M-rated Nintendo games are available to play now on Nintendo Switch Online for N64. Probably gonna boot up some Perfect Dark myself. I friggin' love that game so much. It's sick. Game Boy
weird
Advance.
that the new one is Xbox only. A little weird.
Well, that's rare. So like literally rareware.
Yeah.
Not too surprised. Metroid Zero Mission and The Legend of Zelda Link to the Past 4 Swords, which is the co-op one, are available on Game Boy Advance for Nintendo Switch Online.
Oh, I remember playing those. Link
to the Past is online co-op too, which is super cool.
Wow. Okay.
So with 4 people, so that's really cool. Same with Perfect Dark, you can play the multiplayer online. That's really, really cool.
Now that's fucking cool.
Yeah. Disney Illusion Island, which is a game that I had never even heard of, is getting a free update, and it's available now. Among Us is getting an update. There's a new crewmate and imposter roles. So you can there's like a ghost character, you can go invisible, and then there's like a character where you can like I was gonna say the same thing twice. So if you're still playing Among Us, there you go. Metal Slug Attack Reloaded, the classic Metal Slug game.
Fuck, I do love me some Metal Slug, actually.
Metal Slug is sick. It genuinely like still probably some of the best pixel art ever made. Metal Slug is so sick.
The anthology on PSP is so fucking good.
And then some announcements and some like re-announcements, basically stuff that's still coming out, ready to pre-order. Luigi's Mansion 2 HD is coming to Switch. That's the one that was called Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon on the 3DS. Never finished that game myself. I literally got stuck, and I was too I wasn't invested enough to look it up to see how I get through this area.
Aww.
And I was like, oh, I'll come back to it later, and I just never did. So Luigi's Mansion from the 3DS is coming to the Switch, as we all know, as Luigi's Mansion 2 HD. Darkest Dungeon 2. I think this is the first time it was announced. It's coming to the Switch, July 15th this year. The Nintendo World Championships NES edition is coming on July 18th, and it has a speed run mode. So if you're a big NES game player and you're really adept at flying through those games, there's leaderboards, there's single elimination, there's tournaments. It's cool if you're into the old NES stuff. It's a very competitive take. And then there's Ace Attorney Investigations Collection coming on September 6th. If you're a fan of Ace Attorney, I don't know much about the series, but with this one, I think it was originally a Japan only game that they have now not only remastered, but ported to the West as well. So it's all in English now, and you get to enjoy these characters, and you can swap between new art style and old art style, kind of the same way that we did with Halo, where you can swap between old and new.
Oh man.
Yeah, that's coming September 6th. So that's
I've always
pretty
wanted
much...
to try an Ace Attorney game, actually.
Yeah, they seem pretty... I was kind of shied away from them because I thought they were too logic based. I was I don't know if I'm going to be able to make the case in these,
Yeah.
in these literal court case situations where it's objection, and then you have to point out what was wrong with their claim, and then here's your evidence and back it up and stuff. And I was that seems pretty intense for me. Totally forgetting that it's literally a Nintendo game and it's probably not actually that hard.
Until they make the judge an actual AI.
Oh God, that'd be scary. I have to learn how to mess with the algorithm and shit.
Literally give me your argument. It's not an option in the menu. You have to type it out or say it.
Say it into the microphone right now, and don't stutter ever. No ums, no pauses.
Is there even a microphone on the Switch?
No. We'll get one. We'll get one. Hey You Pikachu style that plugs into the back of a Switch or the charge port or something.
I'll plug in my original Rock Band microphone.
Yeah, apparently that one's not actually that bad.
It's not bad. Yeah, it's not bad.
But that's largely the direct from June 18th, 2024. So lots to get excited about.
I got a weird question for you. Is Metroid something I've never really played one? I've played a little bit of the one. Oh, man, this is wild. A little bit of the one that came out near or maybe with the launch of the DS, the original DS.
Right.
Do you think it's worth picking up if you've never picked it up?
There is a story to it. So you could get into it for sure, but there's a lot of, if you want to get all the story, there's a lot of games that have, some story developments. I started playing one of the Game Boy Advance ones on the Nintendo Switch Online. Fusion? Is that the one? Metroid Fusion, maybe? And it literally is a sequel to another game, and it sort of, you start that game up and it's giving you the lore brief about the end of that other game, and it's after this, then Samus went here and did this and that. And so there's lore that was dropped in the beginning of that game that I didn't even know was a thing in the Metroid series. And so I was oh, that's really freaking cool. And it was a core sort of component about that game. So if you want to get into it, there's definitely a lot there to get into.
And Metroid Prime isn't even the first one, right? Because Metroid Prime Remastered, that's to me that sounds like the first one, but that's not right.
No, Prime was just the one that was I think it might have been the first 3D Metroid.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds like something I'm going to watch a YouTube video on and not actually play maybe one day.
I bet there's probably some really good lore videos for Metroid out there on YouTube.
Maybe even to just catch me up to one that I want to play maybe one day.
Yeah, look up the synopsis.
Yeah. And I used to do that for Assassin's Creed. I played so much Assassin's Creed back in the day that I remember I just got to Revolutions and I was holy fuck, I don't know if I could do this. And then I did boot it up finally because the next game was coming out, whatever it was, and ended up I ended up getting to that hook blade part, and I was I now I actually can't do this, so I just stopped.
It's an hour into the game.
Yeah, it was horrible. It was a Sunday morning, and I was holy fuck, I can't be spending the whole day doing this.
Could though.
And so I don't know, I gave up and never came back, and then I just watched a YouTube video on what happened. And that was about it. But on to some other news from this week. Sony, this is a report. Sony cuts investment in VR department. Only 2 first-party VR games currently in development. This comes to us from IGN. Again, this is a report. Sony is reportedly decreasing its investment in virtual reality gaming, with the publisher said to only have 2 first-party games in development for its PlayStation VR2 headset. In a new report from Android Central, sources close to the outlet claim that Sony is, quote, making deep cuts to funding for VR games, making for very few opportunities for in-house VR games in the future. Android Central's report also claimed that only 2 first-party games for the PlayStation VR are in development. Sony did not immediately respond to IGN's request for comment. If the claim that Sony is slashing investment in VR games is true, the company would not be the only one pulling back support on VR. In February, Ubisoft CEO Yves Guillemot revealed that the publisher did not plan to increase investment in additional VR games due to the disappointing sales performance of Assassin's Creed Nexus VR. I'd like to say something about that game, though. I'm pretty sure that it is still only exclusive to the Meta Quest, and that's fucking dumb in a niche market. Like, you can't be like, I took a piece of the pie, and it was only like a solo pie, like for a single person, and there's not much food here. It's like, correct. Because not everyone that has a Meta Quest 2, 3, etc. are going to buy Assassin's Creed Nexus VR. So not only did you only go on one console in a niche market, not everyone obviously is going to buy the damn thing. That's dumb. I'm sorry to say, but that's dumb.
I feel like you have to temper your expectations for what constitutes a good performance or something like that.
Yeah, because it got good reviews. I remember people were talking about it. I saw influencers playing it. There's a couple of VR guys that I watch on YouTube. I saw them playing it, and like it looked fun, and like I legitimately do want to play it one time, like at some point. But like again, this is a niche market. Like you probably should release on PC as well, and everywhere else like possible to get maximum like efficacy. Like come on, please.
Yeah.
And being the same thing though, PSVR 2. I mean, the PSVR 2 is supposed to, unless it already has, gotten some sort of update to work on the PC. Plug it into USB, whatever, etc. The thing is that right now, it's the ecosystem. You buy a PlayStation 5, you buy the PSVR 2, you plug the PSVR 2 into the PS5, you buy the PSVR 2 games. Like it's a multi-step procedure that's all pigeonholed into, you must have a PS5, you must be in our ecosystem, you must be buying our games from our store. This is a problem. Like it is a niche market that people are treating like it is a niche. And I think the niche has proven itself as a moneymaker, and it certainly has the potential for money. But you ain't going to make the same amount of money that Call of Duty does. And there's also a reason that Call of Duty goes everywhere, right? There's a reason why Microsoft, when they bought Activision Blizzard, was totally cool with being like, yeah, Sony is going to get like Call of Duty because we want the Battle Pass sales, like 100%. We want the store sales. And like, I don't know if they directly said that, but that's the reason. Like they want that money. Like that's what COD does. COD prints money in the form of microtransactions, and they want that money. You wouldn't be like, I'll only give it to Game Pass people. It's like, no, that's not. I don't think that's gonna fly for a game like that. Or like, if Fortnite decided to only go mobile, it's like they're not gonna do that. It makes too much money everywhere, and so. With VR, with VR being so niche, like I don't get why people think it's just gonna like suddenly become some behemoth. I think it's proven that it's, at least right now, not going to.
Yeah, I don't know, maybe they it's literally that. They're like, if we go full bore into it, we'll like kick off the momentum, and then everyone will follow suit, and everyone just isn't following suit.
Yeah, like, well, the thing too is, there's like that classic sort of thing where it's like, when we were kids, it was like, man, in the future, our video games are going to be super realistic. We're probably going to be in VR and blah, blah, blah. But there's like something, there's something to that dream. Like it kind of came true in the form of VR. You can get very immersed in VR. VR is, rather affordable these days, relatively speaking. You can do it without a PC, which is also cool. You can do it on the go because like the Meta Quest 2 is, you can put it in that nice little case. Bring that with you if you need to, and it's just battery powered and that. Like it is relatively easy to get into VR now. but it's still more cumbersome when you want to relax to, strap on a headset, get your VR, like move, get your body moving. And it's more cumbersome to do that. Get your VR controllers and all the rest of it. It's way more cumbersome than walk in the room, pick up a wireless controller and turn on the console and that turns on the TV automatically. And then you're in the game. It's still like a higher, it's a higher, I want to say case of entry. That's not what I'm trying to say. It's a higher point of entry. Like it's too cumbersome. I still think. Like if we were able to like throw on sunglasses or something like that, then maybe, right? Something like that. Or like 3D, like a classic one is like movies were going, ham in 3D. And so of course the movies and the TV manufacturers go, we got 3D glasses and we got 3D TVs now. Like that was a huge thing. 3D at home, 3D at home. But it is more cumbersome, even though it's not that cumbersome. It is more cumbersome to throw on glasses that I think I had to charge up, I think, too. To throw on glasses and have everyone have those glasses in your like living room to watch TV. It's like if you add to the cumbersomeness or the encumbrance, I guess, then like there needs to be like a good reason. And like a controller is like so low key at this point that I don't know. I don't know what VR could do to become less niche. Like, what do you think? Like, I think if it was just a set of glasses, I think it would work.
It just has to become like you say, lower the bar of entry. It has to be, because the more steps you put in the way of somebody achieving something, the less likely they are to do it.
Yep.
Straight up. Especially for a consumer. Like people want to just like buy something and then have it work. And that goes especially for something like that's very expensive compared to like the any other alternative of just playing a game that's not VR, right? To buy hardware for it, you got to invest into it, and then like you say, you kind of have to have this dedicated setup. So you just have to remove those barriers, have it be as intuitive as possible and as non-frustrating as possible, and I think that's the only way that it becomes more mainstream, which is like clearly what they want, they're vying for. But I don't know, it's there's the saying, if you build it they will come kind of thing, that whole mantra. But like again, there's just too many barriers in the way for it to be for a more casual audience.
Yeah, it's like I think the Quest 2 and 3 were great strides in that direction. And like especially when on sale, like I was just kind of curious about VR and ended up getting it as a gift, and then like tried it out and really liked it, and hop in every now and then. But like if I'm tired at the end of a day, I'm not like, woo-wee, let's get my big old headset on, let's like put the wrist straps on, get the thing. And yes, I know I could use hand tracking and all the rest of it, but it's still easier to be like, I'm just gonna boot up COD or I'm just gonna boot up whatever game I'm playing. I even don't want to sit at my desk sometimes to play on PC. It's like, holy fuck, like I do not want to sit at the desk right now.
Yeah, there's like a physical investment sometimes too.
Yeah, like I mean, and admittedly I work at the desk too, so I could just get tired of it. But yeah, it's I think the like a set of glasses would be perfect. Like I have a set of Ray-Ban smart glasses. They're Gen 1, and the one thing that really sucks is they're not waterproof, but I thought it'd be like garbage. I love them. Like take a video, having music playing, or like podcasts, in my case, podcast audiobooks and stuff. Like super nice to have. And I have them as transitions as well, so I can drive with them. So I can just like listen. Oh. Like when we were like road tripping, people in the car were sleeping. So I just had like an audiobook playing just for me, and they would transition. So as it went into the, night, they just became clear glass. And like, I don't have a prescription. These are just transition sunglasses. And like, I love them. Like I thought they were going to be the most gimmicky thing ever. And like, if they were waterproof, I would probably use them as my primary glasses. Like, to be honest, like, why not?
Yeah.
So
that's pretty crazy.
Yeah. Like
they had those.
It was one of those purchases where like it went on sale. Like it was like on a really deep sale one time. Cause I like looked at them and I was like, I'm going to try these out. Like I'm into tech. Like I'm just going to pay like a couple $100, but like, I want to try. I just want to try this thing. And it was just like super pleasantly surprised. Like took like 300 photos with them on vacation and like a bunch of videos and stuff. And like what was super cool, actually, I know we're a little off topic, but what was super cool was when you're driving, you can just get it to like take a clip for you. So you get like this POV of you driving. And so I have this like POV video of me driving across the Confederation Bridge. like from
there you
PEI.
go. That's cool.
And so it's like, man, that was like it, and the camera quality, as long as it's light out, is really nice. So yeah, it's a cool product. So we need things that are like that, where it like enhances the sunglasses experience.
Yeah.
We need somebody to like lower the encumbrance of the VR experience. Next story here comes to us from IGN as well. Witcher 3 dev congratulates FromSoft. I just like paused on Witcher 3 and realized that the story sounded like it was about Witcher 3.
Yeah.
Witcher 3 dev congratulates FromSoft after Elden Ring DLC, which is called Shadow of the Erdtree, overtakes Blood and Wine, which is the Witcher 3 DLC, as best reviewed expansion ever. The developer of Witcher 3 has congratulated the developer of Elden Ring after the Shadow of the Erdtree expansion overtook Blood and Wine to become the best reviewed expansion ever. IGN's Shadow of the Erdtree review returned a score of 10 out of 10.
Whew.
IGN said, quote, like the base game did before it, Elden Ring Shadow of the Erdtree raises the bar for single-player DLC expansions. It takes everything that made the base game such a landmark RPG and condenses it into a relatively 20 to 25 hour campaign and provides, Jesus, that's long, and provides fantastic new challenges for heavily invested fans to chew on. Now with Blood and Wine, it came out in 2016 and it received a 9 out of 10 score. And IGN said, quote, Geralt gets a fitting send-off in The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt, Blood and Wine, courtesy of a strong cast and new items. In a tweet, CG Projekt Red congratulated Elden Ring developer DLC for the release of Shadow of the Erdtree and even pointed to its own staff preparing for its release on June 21st.
Yep, it's out, and it is good. I've probably played it for about 6 hours. A 20 to 25 hour like guesstimation is definitely modest.
Modest, okay. Now,
I don't know anybody who's gonna beat that in 20 hours, to be honest.
So I have a question. So like you've played it. I don't know if you've seen sort of the vastness of the map, but is the map like super vast? Like what is the situation there? Because I know we were discussing like one of the greatest parts about Elden Ring was just like, there were scenes where you get to the edge of a mountain or like a cliff and you're just like, holy fuck. Like look at all the shit down there, and you can go do it all. Like it's not a JPEG.
Yep. I mean, for maybe like map size minor spoilers, I guess. So skip ahead 10 seconds if you want to avoid that. Miyazaki said that it was about the size of the first area of Elden Ring, Limgrave, but many people have said it's like about 5 Limgraves stacked on top of one another. Like there's a lot of verticality to it. So like the map, big, not terribly big, but dense, extremely, extremely dense.
Okay. So like there's a lot of caves and lots of, because like I know that like Elden Ring felt dense, but there's definitely was areas of just sort of like run. Okay, there's a cave here, and that's not me complaining. Like the map was freaking big. So you would say that this map is more dense than the original game?
I think it's equally as dense.
Okay.
It's just that like there's a lot that you can, like when you mentioned before about being able to see something and being like, oh shit, like, that's so cool that I can see it, and knowing that I can like go there later on. What they kind of achieve quite masterfully in this is they show you, like, if you look up, you look below off a cliff or whatever, you can see so much stuff, but you can't get to it because it's either way above you or way below you kind of thing. And it's just that perfect level of like teaser for like seeing what you will eventually be able to get to, but just not yet,
Are you, this might be a weird question, are you scaling in a unique way? Like, is there any reason why you can't, be like, okay, I'm going to get down there, and you kind of like, scale the mountain in a certain way or anything? Like, are you trying to get, there's like the big elevator or the big lift in the original game? Like, are you trying to find those or something like that?
Like, yeah, in a sense, you, it's just that like a lot of the time there's nothing like immediately obvious, like that's how you get down there kind of thing. It's usually just that, I mean, again, I'm not very far into it. I've gotten through the first area and I'm into like the second area, and I'm just mostly learning that like, the things that I'll be able to like get to later is the way you're going to do it is unknown to me yet, kind of thing.
Okay.
There was one area that seems like it's not a huge area, but it's a side area, and it was accessible through a dungeon.
Interesting. Okay, so like it was like I'm not going to speculate too much, but it's like a cave where you enter the cave, and usually you like do the mission, you come back out the entrance, but there's like a through passage in some way,
which is not uncommon in the base game.
I weirdly don't remember. Is there like a famous example? Like I know you and I played quite a bit of the game.
In the very early game of Elden Ring, to get to the Church of Dragon Communion, you have to go through that cave down by the beach that's like underneath where you first come out.
It takes you on the island, right?
And you go into the island, yep.
That's right. Okay. All right.
So it's like not dissimilar to that.
All right. Well, Shadow of the Erd Tree sounds like it's pretty good. So it worth the, what is it, $40, $50 in Canada? What is it?
53 in Canada, I think, yeah. But I think well worth it. Like, I haven't even, it's almost the price, basically, of another game. The very least, like an indie game. But, yeah, it's, like the review said, right? Like, it really builds off of the base game. And it's, it's always, I feel like with how good Elden Ring is, just the base game on its own, I feel like they were really set up to succeed, because you add anything to Elden Ring, it's just adding more icing on an already delicious, like, iced cake, right?
Yeah, Elden Ring, like, I'm not the biggest Soulsborne or whatever game you want to call it, Souls-like game player, but there's there is something special about running around in Elden Ring. Like, it feels like a fucking adventure. Like, if I'm being honest, like, for the first time in a while, it felt like when we did something in that game, it was like, holy fuck, like, like that was whack. Like, that was wild. We got through all that,
Yeah, it genuinely feels like a sense of pride and accomplishment.
Yeah.
But no, it's like it's very good at letting, not to like gush about it for too long, but like it's very good about letting you choose your difficulty kind of thing. Like, if you want to just go and like steamroll your way through like the main progression areas, you can do it. You just have to like genuinely get good at the game. But what the game wants you to do is find these areas, realize, oh shit, it's pretty hard. I'm going to go other places. I'm going to level up. I'm going to find more gear. I'm going to this and that. And then I'm going to come back, and then I'm going to have a better chance. And when that review said that it's like, it condenses that experience into like a smaller kind of chunk of game, like it is genuinely that. I'm playing it on a character that I forgot was on New Game Plus. So it's harder on New Game Plus than it would be on base game. And I've done maybe like 3 major boss fights so far, beaten 2 of them, and I'm on the 3rd. And it's definitely like a struggle. Like, it's like learning. You just have to fight the bosses enough times to start memorizing the attack patterns, and then, take advantage of openings and just minimizing getting hit, optimizing, when you're doing damage and when to heal and stuff like that. Just getting used to it, right? And tweaking your equipment here and there to like maybe put on this amulet so you have more magic resistance or whatever have you. And it's been really satisfying. Like, fighting the bosses has been really satisfying. So I'm really trying to relish it too. I'm only doing it on stream, and we're like going away for the weekend, so I won't even necessarily be here to like play Elden Ring or practice it while we're not here. So
Steam Deck, baby, Deck.
It's always rough when games come out on a weekend that you're not around, right? But back to it on Monday, and I'm really excited to keep going with it, because genuinely, like, these are not to like put FromSoft on too high a pedestal, but like, these are genuinely special experiences to get to play this for the first time and just like go into it when nobody knows anything. Because like, you go online, you look up Elden Ring, like, it's solved. Like, everyone knows where every secret is. Everything, all the bosses are like so studied that you can watch people that are completely naked at soul level 1, like, killing a boss with just their fists or like a dagger or, anything. Like, it's so, without getting hit, right? It's so solved now. But during this time, when like people don't know everything yet about the DLC, like, that's the fun part. I love like not knowing anything and no one else knows anything either, and we're all just trying to figure it out. Like, there's that cool sense of community to it as well. And it's just, I'm sure the people who like PvP are just thrilled, because there's so many people back in the game now that the invasions are probably just going wild. Yeah, it's cool. It's a cool time.
I do remember the Elden Ring kind of period when it first came out was pretty special, because people would just talk like they've been on an adventure, and no one had the same story. Like people were like, man, I went to this field and there was this dragon and blah blah blah, or like I went down this like cave and I thought it was just a cave and then I got knocked out, and like, you know, just like all these like stories, and it's like it's almost like we're, you know, sitting around a campfire in like a town in like the Old West or something, or like, you know, in a fantasy town, and we're talking about our adventures that we had, you know, the tall tales, the true ones, the whatever, like the, you know, like a legit conversation, right? Like at a saloon or something. Like it just felt like that. And even in like the older Bethesda games, like I don't recall a time like that. There was a few moments where people would be like, man, I found this cool secret or whatever. And especially, you know, in Oblivion and stuff when the internet wasn't like super, super big, that, you know, that definitely happened. But Elden Ring, like with the internet in full swing, still took a while for everyone to solve.
Yeah,
like people were still talking.
Time, yeah.
It's crazy. Like it was like, what a crazy time. Like I'm glad I played it, I think. Well, no, I am glad I played it. But like, I'm glad I didn't miss it specifically. Because otherwise, like it was exactly what you said. I would have just been like, I'll get into this now. I'll just look everything up, you know? Like,
yeah.
So no, it was
into the DLC.
I mean, maybe that doesn't sound bad. $53, especially when I was gifted the original.
Yeah,
that's not bad.
That's a lot of game for only $53.
That's a hell of a lot of game for only $53.
Yeah,
3 Sundays worth of Melania fighting.
Easy.
Fuck,
Easy
we're
fight.
Absolutely incorrect statement right there.
Oh, okay, sorry.
I'll have to friggin' argue with you on that. Objectively incorrect. What was that? What's the phrase that we had? She's doing that shit.
Yeah, she's always doing that shit.
Whatever that blade dance is, she does or something.
Waterfowl dance.
Oh, fuck.
There's ways around it. That's another thing that's like notoriously, like obviously that's like considered the hardest fight in Elden Ring in the base game, but like that's one because there's so many eyes on it that is absolutely like dialed in perfectly. Like people know so much about that fight now, how to dodge stuff every time, how to like cheese her AI, hit her with certain items and it like resets her and stuff. Like it's all figured out.
The power and the curse that is the internet.
Yeah.
And the collective human mind.
Yep. Yep. But I mean, it must be insane for like the people that make the game to know that you've made something that has had that much of an impact on like society. It's very cool.
It reminds me of PT, and people figured out PT,
Yep.
and then like Hideo Kojima was like, man, like I underestimated like the collective.
Yeah, I underestimated how fast the internet works. Yeah.
Yeah, like that's crazy. Like, I mean, he's right though. Like, I mean, unless you're, you know, a genius or got lucky or something, if you were a solo or just a small group, it would probably take you quite a while to solve PT.
Yeah, absolutely.
And on to the last story of the night, one that we're definitely going to talk forever about. Sony confirms another Uncharted movie is still happening. This comes to us from GameSpot. It's only been a little over 2 years since Sony's Uncharted movie brought the fan favorite PlayStation games to the big screen, but the studio hasn't exactly been in a hurry to give the sequel a green light. Most of the updates about Uncharted 2 have been filled with uncertainty about whether the sequel would happen at all. Now, Sony has finally confirmed that another Uncharted movie is definitely going forward. Via Variety, Sony's president of international distribution, Stephen Odell, listed the Uncharted sequel as one of the studio's upcoming projects during a presentation at the Cine Europe trade show. However, Odell did not offer any further details beyond that. Did you like Uncharted, the movie? Because I watched it, and I have not played Uncharted, and I thought, that was alright. And that was about as far as I went. Like, I liked it, I thought it was decent, but I'm not, like, I don't need to see it again. Let's just say that.
Yeah, I think that was what the general consensus is, that it was, like, okay. You know? It was a solid 5 or 6 out of 10, like... And that's fine. That is totally fine, you know? As far as video game movies go, I wasn't expecting perfection, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
But it's kind of sad, but I think that like fan made the project that had Nathan Fillion, like they literally cast Nathan Fillion as Nathan Drake, and it's like an 8-minute or maybe 12-minute long video. You can find it on YouTube.
Oh man, I didn't know that actually.
Yeah, you should watch it. It's really good. That kind of had it kind of felt more like actual Uncharted than the Uncharted movie did. And you know what? That's okay. Like you can have a little bit of like a really good thing and then just kind of be sad that it's, you know what an Uncharted film could be, and then the real one wasn't that. But that's not to say that the Uncharted movie was bad. It was totally fine. It was completely inoffensive to me, and I thought that it was cool for what it was.
I really want to know what the consensus was. Well, not the consensus. What the disparity or the difference in score would be if we could somehow do this, of people who watched that movie and did not play the games, and people who have played the games. Because like people like Ryan and them, they were talking about certain references and things like that, and I was just sort of like, I don't know, it's just sort of like a cheaper Indiana Jones. It's like completely ignorant in the back kind of thing. Like
it's very basic. Like I feel like it the intended audience skews probably quite a lot younger than us. Which is like, again, it's fine, right? If that's what you're going for, that's what you're going for, and that's cool. I just felt it was pretty like tame. Like the story was very generic, like Indiana Jones, right? It's like, guy goes in to get thing or achieve goal. Oh no, there's like bad mercenary corporation group X, etc. Blah blah blah, and resolve that, and then hooray, save the day kind of thing. Like it's your standard adventure, like modern sort of adventure fantasy fare, which is totally fine. And, we'll see a million of those movies as time continues to go on. But again, for context as well, I also have not really played any of the Uncharted games. So I'm sure there's lots of people who are diehards that are like, no, it's garbage and this was wrong and that was wrong and blah, blah, blah. But as just a film on its own without any outside influence, it's fine. It's okay. It's not a masterpiece. There's plenty like wrong with it, but it's
it's fun. It's just a fun movie, I guess.
Yeah, it's fun enough. Exactly.
When you were mentioning the people that played the game and were possibly pointing out problems, it reminded me actually there's a there's a website that has the Stargate license, and they released today the pre-orders for purchasing a like replica Stargate with a stand. So of course I went in there and pre-ordered it, but in the description, I had a moment where I was reading it and it was like, it's describing what it's made of and stuff like that. And then it was like, the base has the logo of Stargate SG-1. And I looked at it and I was like, it's not the fucking SG-1 logo. I'm like, that's the Stargate Command logo. And I was like, oh, hang on. I'm becoming that meme of like the actually.
Actually, that's not correct. And that's the wrong logo. How could you get that incorrect?
Even though SGC... Stargate Command is mostly in SG-1, so you could argue it, but I would be like, no, that's incorrect.
Technically, it's incorrect, yeah.
Technically, in the lore, like, you see the SGC in Stargate Atlantis, and probably SGU, but that show sucks. So, like let's calm it down here, boys. Let's correct our description.
Especially with all, like, of Stargate of all things. Like, that has a very, like, faithful fan base. Like, it's like a niche sci-fi show, compared to things like, Star Wars and Star Trek, it's not nearly as big, but it's got diehard fans too, and like they're gonna notice that it's wrong.
Yeah, I mean, I did like immediately. I was like, "Hang on, does it have the SG-1 patch?" Like, no, it doesn't. Like, that's not right. Like,
hey, there you go.
Actually, small. I mean, I hope Adriano's brother's listening to this because we mentioned Stargate again. But I've got my girlfriend hooked on Stargate. We're watching it. We're like 3/4 way through the second season.
Nice.
Mission accomplished. Just 10 more seasons or 8 more seasons of this show, and then 5 seasons of another, and then I guess 1.5 of the other one.
Oh my god!
But God, I can't stand SGU. I never even finished it. Just hate it. But anyway, before I turn literally into the meme of the actually guy. Let's move on to what we're playing. Tim, you mentioned Shadow of the Erd Tree.
Yeah, that's honestly that's pretty much it. We kind of already covered it, so I don't really have much more to add for Shadow of the Erd Tree. But aside from that, is there anything else?
Shadow of the Erd Tree is not enough. It's only a 20-25 hour campaign, a modest, as you said. You need
that's
pack
modest.
Your day.
Most people are citing it about 40 to 50 hours, I think, because some of those boss fights are pretty hard. And I've heard some people say that like it's the majority of that time is because like some bosses are going to take lots of attempts. And actually, I don't have a death counter. Probably should have.
Oh no, don't actually. Don't do that. Don't do that to yourself.
Might drive me a little insane. But there are definitely bosses where like you go in and you die pretty quickly in the first attempt. you last a little longer in the second attempt. You start to get a little more comfortable with their like move set and stuff, and then all the attempts after that, it's like, oh, I made a mistake here, so I got punished, and that was a whole string of attacks, so it actually killed me, and then this and that, and then you start to get a little too confident, and you're like, okay, hang on, I need to reel this back in, and then it just sort of like you go through this rotation of successes and failures in your attempts until you eventually get it figured out enough to whittle them down. But like it's enough, even if there weren't that many boss fights in it, I would probably still be quite satisfied because the boss fights themselves are like fun enough to do. Like I view these games as puzzles, right? Like it's just a matter of getting the right combination of like gear figured out and play style, and then having a good run where you did well enough with the like the attacks, or like the RNG picked a particular attacks to do that you are good at dodging or countering kind of thing. And eventually, my mentality is kind of like, eventually you're going to get that run where it works. You're eventually going to get that perfect run. So just keep trying.
Remnant 2 Apocalypse, that was for us big time.
You'll get it eventually. So just keep trying. And the more you try, the more you hone in those specific skills and those plays you need to pull off, and there you go. So that whole process of it is very fun for me, getting better at it and like noticing that you're getting better as well. It's cool. But like I said, that's largely it.
I remember you talked about, or like you were just saying like about like getting that run, and I remember you and I, when we played Elden Ring, you and I killed Moog in about 14 seconds. We just completely stun locked him. We killed him, and you're like, man, you're like, if he got to his second form or whatever, like he was actually pretty difficult. And I was like, to me, Moog is just horrible. Like he's just not he's just not good at fighting. But like everyone tells me, like I've mentioned to other people, they'll be like, no man, like Moog's crazy if he gets to his second form. I'm like, well, Tim and I just juggled him, and then he fucking dead. He was dead.
Yeah, I
mean,
mean,
he died.
it's a very different beast when you play a multiplayer, right? Like, there's so many people online that are such elitists about the game, and they're like constantly moving the goalposts about, oh well, actually your playstyle is not valid, and actually you need this and that, and actually that's not the true way to play it, and blah blah blah. And if that's all they've got in their lives, then I feel bad for them. But there's using the mechanics that are in the game, like intended for you to be used by the devs, is not an invalid way to play the game. You see so many people that are like, oh, but you're robbing yourself of the satisfaction of like doing it over and over again enough that you like get good at it. And it's like, or I could just play the game in a way that's fun, and I win, and then you get to play it your way and you win, and there you go. But there's this really weird sense of like almost like competition or like dick measuring with a single player game that's like not inherently competitive. And people will say, oh, you're not allowed to use summon ashes, you're not allowed to do this and that. And then even if you do it all the way they say to do it, there's still, oh, well, you did that, but you didn't this or that. So
Jesus Christ.
The goalpost is always moving, and there's no satisfying, people like that. But that's going to be anything at all in the entire world. You'll always have somebody who is out to make your experience feel less valid. You're allowed to play it any way you like. And I know that like a lot of people use summon ashes, and like I've seen people online saying that the DLC for them so far hasn't been like too bad because they're like using Mimic Tier, and it's tearing through guys just as well as it did in the base game, and that's a completely fun and valid way to play the game too, and it wouldn't be in the game if you weren't meant to use it. So it's again, when I say like it's a game where you can really choose your own difficulty, if you want to do boss fights completely naked with just like unupgraded equipment, yeah, you can totally do it if that's fun for you. Yeah. Absolutely. And it's really, really cool that the game lets you do that. But don't sit there and try to tell other people it's the only way to do it, Well,
like I remember there's the I can't remember what the difficulty name is now. I think it's survival in Fallout 4. So they like patched in a survival mode where you have to like eat and drink and stuff like that. And like playing in a certain way like that, to bring it back to Elden Ring, can really change, like, this is going to sound stupid or maybe obvious, but it can really change the game. Like a Bethesda game to me is I start out, I have a little bit of challenge here and there. Maybe like, a certain boss, like a bandit, like king or something is kind of a pain in the ass. Or like a certain, Securitron or Assaultron's a pain in the ass. But in general, I slowly but surely work my way up to being basically God status. I don't take cover anymore. I just run in there and kill everything. And that's a Bethesda game to me. Like that is a Bethesda game to me. Whereas if the Bethesda game was always me scared off my ass and like, you know, having to be really strategic and stuff. Like there are so many people that say like, oh, you know, Fallout 4 is too easy. Like I have to play survival. And I'm like, I fucking want it to be easy. Like I earned the ability, like my character worked his way up or her way up to get up to the point where it's easy. Like that's the point. Like that is a Bethesda game to me. Like I am now a god. I have the best armor or like whatever, you know, like fuck all these fools. I'm going to kill all these raiders. Like, you know what I mean? Yeah. Like that's how I play it. And that would be a totally different experience if I was like, oh fuck, there's raiders over there. Like that's a completely different mentality. It's a different game, really.
Yep.
And so like, I just don't get the, I don't know, pigeonholing, gatekeeping, whatever you want to call it. I just don't get that. Like, it's just, to me, it's like, okay. But I like, unless it's something like you're doing like a competition or something, like if it's like, hey, I'm trying to speed run and you're cheating or something, like fair enough. Like if you're trying to do something that's parametered, sure. But like to say you're doing it wrong, if you're just playing a single player game is really, that's foolish. That's, I don't know. That's weird. Anyway, what I'm playing is, I have gotten pretty damn far in RoboCop. Game is really fucking good. The one thing that's really weird though is the game kind of ended and I'm still not done. Like there was like a whole like kind of, I would say realistically, like a climax to a lot of the story.
Yeah.
And like a big boss fight. And so I was like, okay, like I'm done. Not that I'm in a rush, but I thought I was done.
Yep.
And then it was just sort of like, all right, we got to do this case. And I was like, oh, like maybe it's an epilogue, you know, little end piece. And it was. There was like this little epilogue part. It kind of like ties up a couple loose ends. So I was like, cool. Then it's like, all right, Robo, get in the briefing room. And I thought it was going to be like, you walk in, it fades out, credits, you know, RoboCop Rogue City. And that's going to be it.
Yeah. Yep.
Oh, no, I'm doing a case. I'm doing whole new case. Doing a whole new thing. We're on the case. We're interrogating people. You know, we're doing whatever the fuck. And so I took a look at the achievements because it tells you, you know, there's like one achievement per mission or whatever. One thing that really pissed me off is I didn't complete a mission in 10 minutes, and it's the only achievement I'm going to miss. I didn't know that was a parameter because there's no 10-minute thing. And let me tell you one thing. I got my fucking ass kicked in that mission. It's the only mission I've ever got my ass kicked, but good Christ, did I get my ass kicked.
That's why it's the one with the time limit on it. It's supposed to be the challenging one. And
it's going to hurt me too. It's going to hurt me. It's going to hurt me. I'm going to have to like, I have a backup of my saves because my Steam cloud messed up because my internet shut off one day, or my power or something, I can't remember, shut off one day and my Steam cloud was acting weird, so I just like took a copy just in case. And a good thing too, actually, because my Steam Deck didn't sync and it was all messed up. But I think that save is still in there, so I might just save scum it and like go back because I don't want to fucking do the whole game again. But like, whatever. I don't want to miss one achievement. Like that's gonna kill me. Like
when you're that close, you may as well get the plat for sure.
Yeah. So, but I've been doing that on my Steam Deck. I've also been doing that on my PC. Man, fuck, the combat's good in that game. Like you just walk into a place and you cannot crouch. You're RoboCop. You can't crouch. You can't go.
You walk in, run and gun. Yeah.
You run and gun. I'm picking people up and whipping it at other people. People are fucking screaming, they blew my fucking hands off and shit like that.
Oh God. Yeah.
While they're like screaming, looking at their, like where their hands were.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, man.
It's brutal. I've seen some gameplay of it. It's pretty nuts, yeah.
My favorite, this is going to sound really fucked up, but my favorite thing to do is to pick people up, and if I'm in a low ceiling, I aim it so their head will hit the ceiling first, and so I whip them, and their head hits it, and then they just flat against the ceiling, and then they fall down.
Yeah. Yeah.
But no, that's a good game. Like, if you're into RoboCop, that's a good one. And it's made by the same people that made that frickin' Terminator game, which is awesome. And that's a damn good Terminator game, especially the DLC, the Annihilation line. Fuck, that's a good Terminator game. Go check it out. Like, goddamn. I'm getting my fill of 80s games here. It's kind of wild. And there's another Terminator game coming out this year.
Jeez.
There's a survival game coming out. I'm down. Like, I'm down to play it. I'm totally down. So I'm getting my fill of like 80s, 90s action movie stuff, I guess.
Yeah.
Other than that, a little bit of Apex. Got a couple wins, I believe, this week, which is pretty cool. Did that. 1 or 2 sessions of that. And I want to say, Little bit, not too much, like a little bit of Diablo. Getting my character so that he's like a little bit feasible. I can feel like that fatigue setting in of like, okay, I'm getting to the end of like the first grinding thing so that I can do the next grinding thing. Like, okay, kind of, I mean, but I'm doing a multiplayer again, just a couple hours here, there, like a couple hours every other week or so. Not a huge deal. So it's like, I just want to experience it. I'll give it a try. I'll give it a fair shake. Try to quote unquote complete most of the season, or at least get a character that's, viable and can play at the end game, do a couple runs or whatever, see what's up. And we'll see what happens with that. But yeah, I don't know. It's just, I just don't know if that type of game is for me anymore. Maybe. Well, I shouldn't say that. I did the runs at the end of Outriders, like even solo, like hundreds of times. So maybe I'm more of like a third person guy and not an isometric guy anymore, because I did isometric games for so much when I was as a kid. So maybe that's the reason. I'm not sure, but yeah, that's been my week. A little Diablo, a little Apex, and a little whatever. Oh, actually, no, there's one other thing. New Fallout 76 DLC. Gave that a try. Just kind of wandered around, and it's cool as hell. But the graphics look like poop, which is really unfortunate.
Did you make a Google character?
I did not. I'm still using the same character.
Right.
Just because if I were to start a new character, like, man, it would just
giving up a lot of hours.
Yeah, I don't want to do that right now. I want to be able to like just go. Now I can technically change my character to a Google character, but I'm a bloodied character, so I'd have to like have another build ready. But I am working on a commando build, so maybe I'll maybe if I get enough gear to do that, then I'll give that a try. I don't think the Brotherhood will talk to you though. Maybe I won't.
I don't think they will. We'll
see. But tried it out. Haven't gotten too far or anything. The storm's super cool. The one thing, like I said, really unfortunate. There's a part in the game where it's like, hey, like walk toward this area. So we were like, hey, like instead of fast traveling near it, let's actually walk. We walk and we're like, there's the storm. There's trees in front of it. Why does it look like shit? Like it just didn't look good at all. And it was like this, it's like the spectacle of the thing. Once we got closer, it looked good, but it like did not look good on that walk. But no, the new area is pretty damn cool. There's turkeys everywhere trying to kill you, which is kind of ridiculous. But we found some cool stuff. I found some really, really creepy dude, and I tried to talk to him, and he like disappeared in an explosion. I don't know what the hell that was about.
All right.
So there's like mysteries abound. The vault is super cool. It's like a multi-part vault that had like a tram system, like a train system between the parts. But it was never completed. So, and then that's all I know about the lore. So, and I think all that stuff was actually shown in the trailer. But I think other than that, I think that's been my week. I almost said I played Elden Ring with you, and that's just literally not true. I didn't know the DLC came out until before that, like, till you told me.
Random as hell.
It is random as hell. I think it's because I had the show notes in front of my face, and so I saw the shadow of the Erd tree, and I was like, I did that. I did that too. Actually, I'm one of the cool kids. I wasn't playing RoboCop. I was playing Shadow of the Erd tree.
Yep.
And Blood and Wine, I guess. Anyway, Tim, where can the good folks find you?
Yes, normally 5 days a week at twitch.tv/thesidetrack, where I'm sure there's going to be lots of Elden Ring to come. Beating my head against the wall, putting myself through not only a DLC that is considered to be post-game content, considered to be the hardest stuff that's in Elden Ring, but also doing it for the first time, going in blind, on New Game Plus. So it's just that extra little bit of taking damage, enemies have more health, it's still doable, but it's definitely harder. Like, it's putting me through my paces, and I'm super rusty on Elden Ring too. Like, I haven't played it for a year and a half, so I'm like, maybe I will bring my Steam Deck when we go away this weekend, and I'll just like make a new character and just try to like get back into the rhythms and the habits of the controls and things. But
and that's the only way to play it, right? The way you're playing it with the harder difficulty, that's the only way that anyone should ever play it.
Yeah, that's right. Actually, I'm doing it on New Game Plus exclusively, and I'm making sure to never summon and never use any spirit ashes and solo everything. I will say, there is like, it's totally cool to like impose these restrictions on yourself, of course, like if you want it to be fun. For me personally, when I go through like a DLC or I do anything from Soft for the first time, I always do it solo. because I feel like I almost need to prove to myself that like I can do it. I'm still good enough to like beat a FromSoft game alone. When I played Elden Ring the first time, like I used my Spirit Ashes here and there, but I didn't use them all the time. I actually kind of forgot it was a mechanic for like the majority of the game. There were a couple of things where I was like, okay, I might need the Mimic Tear for this. And but there were a couple of things that I was sort of like walled by, and I was like, okay, like I'll change up my strategy and then I'll use a Mimic Tear, blah, blah, blah. But for the vast majority of things, like I just did it alone. And it's the same with the DLC. Like I'm not, there are NPC summons that you can summon. There might be other players that are able to put their signs down too, but I'm offline. So I'm not seeing any of that. Because I don't want to see I don't want messages to like spoil anything for me for like illusory walls or traps ahead or anything like that. I want to go in completely fresh. But yeah, like that's just something I put on myself. Like no one's telling me to, not use summons or not use Spirit Ashes. I just want to do the boss the first time by myself. And if you don't want to do that and you want to do it all multiplayer, then fucking have at it. It's absolutely your game. It's just something that I am imposing on myself for my own fun. To kind of prove to me that I can do it, right? It's funny when you mentioned that in your mind, Moog is just like a huge pushover because you beat him first try in like 14 seconds. There's a pretty notorious boss in Elden Ring that's like towards the end called Malekith, which is like the wolf guy with the sword.
Oh yeah, yep.
I beat him first try, first time ever fighting him, and there's a lot of people that consider that fight to be various degrees between either just annoying or like really hard. And again, no co-op, no summons, just beat it first try on my own. And so to me, in my mind, Malekith is like easy. It's like really easy because I just had no issues with that fight. But every time I go back, it's like I've played through the game, I guess 2 times with my first character, 2 times with the second character, and then maybe a third character on PlayStation. So I fought Malekith like 5 times, I guess.
Once with me, maybe. I don't know.
And then also once with you. Yep. So so I fought him 5 or 6 times, and like every time I go into that fight, I think I can't not do well in this fight because in my mind it's easy.
Right.
Like still,
okay.
even though I know why it's hard and why people don't like it, or like why people like have issues with it, kind of thing, or struggle. But in my mind, I'm like, no, I beat him first try. Like I have to be able to recreate that. And I just put this like insane, expectation on myself, even though it's not fair at all to do.
It's probably just because like that first impression syndrome. I don't know if that's a syndrome, but you know what I mean? It's like the first impression where I'll always go into Moog being like, come on, let me beat you up. And then he'll be like, oh, fuck, he's beating me up. Like,
yeah, it's very different solo versus multiplayer. Like, of course, but yeah.
How many of those gatekeepers would be ashamed of us that we used the seamless co-op mod, I think it was called? It's
a fun one. It's really, really good.
It is really good.
I wonder how long it'll take for them to update that for the DLC. But yeah, it's it's wild. I've never seen a mod do something for a game that like just very slightly alters how like a mechanic works, and it just makes the multiplayer experience like feel so much better.
So much better.
Yeah, it's very cool. We'll have to pick up Elden Ring again to get back into it.
I'm gonna keep an eye on this Erd tree. I'd be interested to try it because like I felt pretty damn accomplished when we beat Elden Ring. It felt pretty good. I think I rocked a beer. I think it was like a weeknight too. It's like just cracking a beer.
Yeah, it's fun.
As for us, you can find us on the Twitch on Wednesdays. That is twitch.tv/day1patchmedia around 9:00 Eastern Toronto time. Approximately. We are currently going through some Halo games. We are putting the first Halo on hiatus because it's only 2-player co-op, but we're going to try the third Halo, trip down memory lane big time. I've only really truly beat all the levels of that game once. I've definitely helped random friends hopped in and out as that was the beginning of that era of multiplayer.
Mm-hmm.
But
Ryan's never beaten it, so that's cool.
That is cool. Yeah. So we'll try to beat it for him. And that'll be pretty good. That'll be a pretty cool little, again, trip down memory lane. But that's it. That's the show. See y'all next time. Friends.
Don't forget to rate it on whatever platform you're listening to it on.
Subscribe it.
Now available on YouTube.
That's right. YouTube, and more importantly, YouTube Music.
And we'll see you in episode 491.
91.
Jeez.
Kind of wild. Peace.